The series begins in a high school in South Korea, where a young student named Yeon Si-eun is hard at work preparing for his mock exams. A few days later, Si-eun is called to the front of the class to receive his award for securing first place in an intra-school mathematics competition. His class fellow, Youngbin, does not like this but chooses to remain silent. Once the teachers leave, Youngbin and his group of bullies begin to bully a boy. Irritated, Si-eun hits Youngbin with his shoe to stop. This causes things to heat up between them, and Youngbin is about to hit Si-eun back just as the school's baseball team enters their class. The team's captain confronts Suho about flirting with his girlfriend and attempts to hit him. However, Suho is too fast for him, and he has the entire team on the floor in seconds. This is why everyone except for Si-eun begins to fear him. As the weeks go by, Si-eun continues to study hard. He is often the first person to enter the classroom and the last to leave. One morning, when Si-eun enters the classroom, he finds Suho sleeping on their desks. He ignores Suho and starts preparing for gym class when he notices that his uniform is missing. After gym class, Si-eun is cornered by Youngbin, who starts choking him. Before the fight can escalate, a teacher breaks up, and Si-eun dismisses the teacher's concerns. That night, Si-eun's studying is interrupted when the doorbell rings. When he opens the door, he is surprised to see that it is Suho, who has mixed up a delivery address. The next day, a new transfer student named Bum Si-euk is introduced to the class. Youngbin immediately marks him as his new target and goes up to the timid boy. He tells Bum Si-euk that his friends study in the same high school as him, but Bum Si-euk denies knowing his friend. Later that night, the group of bullies goes to a club, where Youngbin's cousin, Si-euk dad, provides them with fentanyl. Even though Youngbin's cousin tells him to be careful with the drugs, he dismisses the warnings. The next morning, Youngbin corners Bum Si-euk and tells him that he knows about the bullying he had to endure in his old high school. He claims that if Bum Si-euk wants to avoid getting bullied in this school, he needs to put a patch of fentanyl on Si-eun before their exam. Since Si-eun cared about his grades, Youngbin wanted to take that away from him. Sure enough, before the exam starts, Bum Si-euk manages to put the on Si-eun's neck, causing him to mess up the exam. When the results are announced and Si-eun notices both the patch and the questions he had messed up, he is unable to control his anger and starts punching Youngbin until he breaks his nose. While clicking his pen, he beats his friends as well. A few days later, Si-eun is taken to the hospital by his teacher, where Youngbin's mother insists on seeing his parents. Not bothered by this, Si-eun tells Youngbin's mother that her son had drugged him. He even shows her the evidence. This is why Si-eun is let off with only a warning. This does not sit well with Youngbin's friends, and they decide to confront Si-eun after class. However, Si-eun uses Pavlov's theory and starts clicking his pen again, causing them to back off without a fight. That night, while returning home, Si-eun runs into Suho and ends up eating lunch with him, but does not bother talking. After school the next day, Youngbin waits for Si-eun to leave the school building, along with Si-euk-da and his gang. They take him to a secluded area so that they can get back at him without anyone watching. Bum Si-euk, who had seen Si-eun leaving with the group, rushes back to Suho and begs him to help Si-eun. When Suho refuses, Bum Si-euk offers to pay him double what he makes at work. The two of them arrive just in time to see Si-eun getting beaten up by the bullies. Despite him putting up a fight, he was outnumbered. Suho, who is highly skilled in martial arts, manages to knock down all the bullies along with Si-euk-dae. Once the fighting is over, Suho takes both of his friends to his part-time job and makes them help him before they can sit down to have dinner. Meanwhile, Si-euk-dae is confronted by his boss, Jil-soo, who asks him what had happened. Si-euk-da does not have an answer for him, which is why Jil-soo breaks his arm. He then tells Youngbin that everything is his fault and he needs to fix things. On the other hand, a girl from Gil-soo's gang named Yi finds Si-eun inside a convenience store and manages to force him to have dinner with her. She gives him her number and then leaves in a hurry. The next day in school, Youngbin asks Si-eun to not testify against him, or he will end up going to a detention center. At first, Si-eun hesitates, but once Bum Si-euk asks him to do it, the three friends agree to follow Youngbin to a courtroom. He lures them to the basement, with Jil-soo and his gang are waiting for them. Jil-soo threatens Si-eun to come up with 15 million won in 3 days. He even has members of his gang follow the three of them to make sure that they fear Jil-soo and stick to their promise of coming up with the money. Bum Si-euk caves in and steals a Rolex from his father and sells it off for money. At the same time, Si-eun meets up with Yi and asks her for details about Jil-soo. 3 days later, Bum Si-ok shows his friends the money and tells them that they can make Jil-soo go away. However, both Soo-ho and Si-eun don't want to give in, and Si-eun reveals that Yi had given him the information that he needed. She had told him that Jil-soo and his brother had created a gambling game where they made it easy to win millions of won before losing it on their 4th try. Once the kids were addicted to the large sum of money they were receiving, they continued to gamble until they could not pay anymore. He would then keep their documents and valuable items that he could cash. That day, when the 3 of them leave school, they notice Jil-soo waiting for them outside. Soo-ho tells Si-eun to call the police to raid Jil-soo's home, where he was keeping all the items while he buys time. Soo-ho goes up to Jil-soo and proposes a business deal. When they arrive at Jil-soo's house, the gang leader immediately calls on his bluff and beats him half to death before emptying the house. As soon as Jil-soo leaves, he finds Bum Si-ok outside, who offers to give him cash, but Jil-soo refuses and takes the 2 boys with him to a secret hideout. During this, Si-eun arrives at the house, but the police don't take him seriously, as they think it is not their jurisdiction. He sneaks inside, where he finds blood on the floor and calls Yi, asking her for Jil-soo's location. She tells him that Jil-soo is at an abandoned amusement park. Yi and Seok-dae head for the park as well, where Jil-soo gives Seok-dae another beating. Just then, Si-eun arrives there as well, and sirens in the distance cause Jil-soo and his gang to run off. Si-eun cuts off the ropes tying his friends, but just as they are leaving, Jil-soo brings Si-eun's cell phone that was playing a fake video with police sirens. He goes to hit the 3 boys, but Seok-dae throws Jil-soo off and puts up a decent fight. All of a sudden, a police officer arrives at the scene and arrests the gang, but Jil-soo runs off. Si-eun and Soo-ho chase after him and manage to get him arrested as well. Sometime later, that night, when Bum Si-ok reaches home, his father, who was a famous congressman, beats him with a golf stick for stirring up trouble. Bum Si-ok, who was used to beating, goes to school in the morning, as if nothing had happened the previous night. He finds that all of the students had heard about Jil-soo's arrest and had started respecting him and his group of friends. Things start going back to normal, but Bum Si-ok finds that he does not fit in with his group of friends. Yi makes plans for Soo-ho's birthday, where Bum Si-ok continues to feel alone. He offers to get drinks for his friends, but when he goes outside, he comes across bullies from his old school. He manages to hide, but they announce that they should call his phone. When he returns to their karaoke room, he notices that Yi has answered a call from his bullies and has told them where he is. Angry, he shouts at her just as the bullies enter their room. Seeing how tense Bum Si-ok is, he makes the bullies go away. The next day, Bum Si-ok does not go back to normal and even shouts at his class fellows to stop talking. As he starts receiving calls from the bullies, he begins to distance himself from his friends. One day, Si-eun and Soo-ho decide to visit him at home, and he ends up confessing that he had been brutally bullied for years until he transferred to their school. Soo-ho tells him to call the bullies for a meeting, and that he will make them apologize. When they meet the bullies, things start escalating, and Bum Si-ok loses control of his temper and even tries to hit his bully. Soo-ho drags him away, but he shouts at Soo-ho for always dragging him around and thinks that he is looking down on him. The 3 friends part ways as Bum Si-ok leaves upset. Outside, he comes across Youngbin's group of friends who had been bullying Si-eun. They take him to a club where he pays for their drinks and parties with them until late that night. The next morning, he continues to hang out with the bullies and even sits with them at lunch. Si-eun tries to intervene, but Bum Si-ok does not change his attitude. One day, they get into a fight where Soo-ho pushes Bum Si-ok to the ground. Frustrated, Bum Si-ok offers to pay a boy named Woo-yeon to beat up Soo-ho. Youngbin also reveals that Woo-yeon was an old rival of Soo-ho. That night, Youngbin's gang cuts off the brake wires from Soo-ho's delivery motorcycle, causing him to get into an accident. The next day, while preparing for Soo-ho's birthday, Yi receives a message from Bum Si-ok, who lures her into a basement, where the bullies along with Woo-yeon wait for Soo-ho to arrive. Sai even notices a picture of Ye tied up on Soo-ho's phone and deletes the messages. He then heads to the basement, where he takes the bullies on. Even though he manages to take most of them down, Woo-yeon, who is much more skilled than he is, attacks him. Youngbin takes this opportunity to beat Si-eun, while Bum Si-ok begs them to stop. When they don't, he runs off and calls the police. Si-eun refuses to tell the police the truth to avoid Bum Si-ok getting into trouble and spends several days at the hospital. He avoids talking to Soo-ho, who begins to figure out that something is wrong. Meanwhile, Bum Si-euk's father hears about the problems he has been causing and beats him up. This time, Bum Si-euk runs away from his house but receives a call from Soo-ho, who tells him that it is time for them to fight. Bum Si-euk calls Woo-young and asks him to fight Soo-ho. There, as the fight begins, Woo-young uses dirty tactics to take Soo-ho down. Bum Si-euk goes into the boxing ring and tries to help his friend, but when Soo-ho tells him that he is a monster, he loses it and begins kicking him until he is unconscious. His father's bodyguard arrives there as well and tries to cover up the scene by making the bullies take the blame for everything. Soo-ho slips into a coma, and when Si-eun finds out about it, he beats up Young Bin and even crushes Woo-young's leg. He then goes to the classroom where he beats up all the bullies and even Bum Si-euk. Because of this, Bum Si-euk's father beats him up and sends him to the Philippines so that he can avoid a scandal. He also uses his influence to make sure that Si-eun is unable to get into any reputable college. The only place that he is accepted into is a school full of delinquents. Even then, Si-eun continues to live fearlessly and challenges the bullies in his new school as well.